It reaches out. It reaches out. It reaches out. 113 times a second. Nothing answers and it reaches out. It's not conscious, though parts of it are. There are structures within it that were once separate organisms. Aboriginal, evolved, and complex. It is designed to improvise, to use what is there and then move on. Good enough is good enough, and so the artifacts are ignored or adapted. The conscious parts try to make sense out of the reaching out. Try to interpret it. The death slugs are coming! The death slugs are coming! I'm Michael Levers, and this is Fit to be Read. Cibola Burn is book 4 of the Expanse series. This is, of course, penned by the writing team of Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham, known by their pseudonym James A. Corey. As with each review on this channel, the episode will begin with a spoiler-free review, series recap, character analysis, and plot summary. Following that summary, I'll announce a 5 likes and 5 dislikes segment that will include spoilers. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button and the notification bell before we start. While the first half of the review will not include spoilers for Cibola Burn, it may very well include spoilers for the first 3 books of this series. Cibola Burn is the sequel to Leviathan Wakes, Caliban's War, and Abaddon's Gate. Following the trend of Caliban's War and Abaddon's Gate, there are 4 primary point of views in Cibola Burn. There is also an additional, less prominent, 5th point of view, simply titled The Investigator. Very generally and briefly recapping the first 3 novels, the Expanse series features James Holden and the crew of the Rocinante. In Leviathan Wakes, these characters are introduced as part of the crew of the now-destroyed ice hauler, the Canterbury. Holden, the crew, and Star Helix detective Miller were searching for a missing woman, Juliet Mao. From the conclusion of Leviathan Wakes to the beginning of Cibola Burn, the reader is treated to Miller and Mao's deaths via contact with a mysterious alien protomolecule. New characters: Roberta Draper, a skilled marine, Avasarala, a foul-mouthed and badass leader, and several others. On high display are the dangers and political implications of the relations between Earth, Mars, and the Belters. A protomolecule-instigated alien ring in proximity to the outer planets has opened a gateway to thousands of new worlds to be investigated, explored, and perhaps exploited or settled. Cibola Burn opens with an introduction to one of these now accessible worlds, Illis or New Terra. The initial conflict centers around squatting rights between the new settlers who, perhaps illegally, rushed through the gate to set up shop here, and Royal Charter Energy, who, going through legal channels and backed by a UN charter, have acquired claim to the planet and the rights to mine its vast lithium deposits. While this is the first book of The Expanse to extend beyond our solar system, the story is more local than any of its predecessors. The vast majority of the action is split between the dispute and a series of crises on the planet and in space just beyond the planet's atmosphere. We can't have The Expanse without Holden and crew. Holden, being considered an objective and unbiased mediator for maybe not the best of reasons, is convinced to head to Illis or New Terra to resolve or not resolve the dispute between the settlers and RCE. Getting back to our setting, the arrival of Holden creates the space theater of the Rocinante, a powerful warship. The Edward Israel, RCE's large repurposed colony ship, most notable for its security team, political figurehead on board, and a group of scientists that are ready to set up shop on the planet. And finally, the Barba Piccola, or Barbie Piccola, the old transport ship of the settlers loaded with lithium and other members of the settlers group. Of course, the Rocinante is there to deliver Holden, the mediator. The Barba Piccola is on its way to deliver and sell its mined lithium. And the Edward Israel is there to deliver its scientists to the planet and to embargo the Barba Piccola from leaving orbit with its contested payload. Planet side, all three groups are likewise represented. The RCE sends a shuttle down with a security force led by their head of security, Mertry, and several members of the science team. The settlers are, of course, already on the planet. Among them are a roughshod settlement government of sorts, a terrorist element, and other families. The first members of Holden's crew to touch down on the planet are Holden and Amos. The settlement area of the planet is fairly basic and barren. Most notable is the interesting and unusual flora and biology, or non-human critters of the planet, some dangerous, some benign, some alien relics, and the modest habitations of the settlers. This being a contentious situation to start with, and this being the Expanse, of course things are not going to go smoothly in space or on the surface. Avoiding spoiling the fun, let's take a look at the three non-Holden POVs. I won't spend time talking about the investigator POV, as it is, unfortunately, a useless element of the story, and just by its presence, appears to be offering a promise of intrigue or excitement that it's never fulfilled or delivered. First is Elvie. Elvie is one of the scientists that arrived on the Edward Israel. When she goes down on the planet, she's a good one to have around. She's mostly even-headed, she's highly skilled and intelligent, and she has a no-nonsense approach to her work. At times, it feels like her character is made more central to the story or given things to do, lest the writers be forced to abandon one of the POVs halfway through the book. Elvie is likable and very easy to relate to and to root for. Bazia is a welder and one of the settlers on Illis. His character is in a small way present earlier in the series, as his family lived on Ganymede and his child Katoa is one of the victims of earlier protomolecule-related events there. Bazia is an important figure in the story for a number of reasons, including an association to the terrorist-related events in the story. Havelock is another returning character. Most of his POV is from his station on the Edward Israel. Previously Miller's partner during Leviathan Wakes, Havelock is now in a leadership role among the RCE security team. Of course, the final POV is James Holden. On his end, we get his whole crew, Naomi, Amos, and Alex. The other most notable character in the book is Mertry. Mertry is the head of the RCE security team. He is a company man with very firm boundaries and strict resolve to carry out his mission on behalf of his employers. To say Mertry has an extreme personality is an understatement. How he relates with Holden, Amos, those under his charge, and the settlers is of great consequence throughout Cibola Burn. Cibola Burn is a solid, fit-to-be-read episode in the action-packed saga that is the Expanse series. This installment has all the blockbuster elements, big explosions, gunfights, suspense, heroes and dangers, rescue missions, and political consequences. To avoid consequences of spoiling the spoiler-free review, I will now proceed to the spoilery stuff. Here are my 5 likes and 5 dislikes, including spoilers, for Cibola Burn. Like number 1, Coop, the terrorist leader being taken off the board early, shot right through the eye. This was good, non-telegraphed action, and the character wasn't exploited beyond his usefulness to the story. Mertry's cold, hard, unapologetic act told us exactly who he is and what we needed to know about him going forward. Dislike number 1, the mini investigator chapters were a huge swing and a miss. Maybe not a huge swing, let's say a little swing and a huge miss. It felt like an attempt to make this series more than what it is. The Expanse is a great series. It's fun, it's action, it's accessible. It's not super deep or greatly philosophical, at least not by book 4 of this series. These chapters represent, to me, the authors trying a little bit too hard for the series to be something that it just isn't. Dislike number 2, Havelock's character being a bit overstated at times. He has a moment where he says early in the crisis, while his role still isn't quite defined by circumstances, they're all gonna die and there's nothing I can do to stop it. As if that's his responsibility, that responsibility has fallen onto him. Since when did he become this magnificent being who is in charge of everybody and he shoulders the burden and the weight of the responsibility? Is the reader supposed to connect with him here and expect that he should feel upset about his lack of ability? There's a complete disconnect in the story there for me at this point. At this point, we still only know him as the not too important sidekick for Miller 3 books ago, and maybe the 3rd or 4th on the power depth chart of the Edward Israel. And it's as if the authors overlooked that they haven't elevated him yet beyond that. Not just yet in this book. Like number 2, I liked the surprise attack with the shuttle being sent after the Rocinante while they're trying to save the Barba Piccola. I obviously was pissed off as I was rooting for the rescue mission, but I liked that the book was able to push that and to evoke such a strong, how dare those assholes, emotion from me. Like number 3, I like that Murtry is made nasty enough to really get me invested in his defeat, and that he's captured to face the music rather than just killing him and leaving the revenge seeming somewhat incomplete. Dislike number 3, Amos's conflict with Murtry at the bar early on. It makes sense for the character, but it conflicts with the tone of this series. I don't know if I like this or not. I'm definitely not on Amos's side here, and I don't think that's how it's supposed to go down. I think we're always supposed to be rooting for Amos, and we're probably supposed to hate Murtry already, but that's not what's happening. I think we're intended to root for Amos, and we're always supposed to be Team Holden. I definitely wasn't thinking, though, rah, rah, go Amos, get him. The writing of this series is really good, and character development is okay, but not to the point that it allows room for even small slip-ups or presumptions in the storytelling. Dislike number 4, a lot of little things. None of these gets elevated to a full dislike, so I'll dump the full potpourri in here. First, there were a surprising number of typos in the book, and this is one of the main copies or editions of it. I've taken note of a few of them, but I'm not going to talk about them all here. If somebody wants to talk to me about what they were, maybe I'll look them up again. Next, Naomi is mostly invisible in the book until around 200 pages in, and her first real entry has to focus on her physical description and talks about her hairdo. I'm not loving that. Around the same point in the story, completely unrelated, there's a scene where the engineers are trying to learn from Havelock, and they're expressing that it would maybe make more sense if he could give them algorithms that would explain for what to consider watching when they're going around corners and such and all of that during battle, because they're engineers and they can learn it better that way. Of course, this was an intended light ha-ha moment and not a laugh out loud hysterical one, but it was still low-hanging fruit. I mean, how cute. The engineers are talking all engineering, and we get to see how different their world is than that of the grunts. Finally, and this is just stupid of me, but small note, Holden or Amos, I think probably Holden, uses the word sundries, and I'm just not buying it as something that's in their regular use vernacular. It feels like a forced word, and it feels almost pretentious. Is that fair? It's to me, the author in a too obvious way is trying to make his writing a little bit more dynamic, as is their right to do. I'm going to shut up about that now. Dislike number 5. If I were looking at the books like a TV series, I would consider Cibola Burn to be the equivalent to a generic mid-season episode. It has all the right elements, the world and the characters, all the stuff that I really like, villain of the week, and lots of action and suspense. If I reviewed this the first time that I read it, I'd probably be more effusive, I'm sure. On reread, it still delivers a solid Expanse dose of thrills and action, but it doesn't really blow me away. Like number 4, Avasarala, both being referenced as owing Holden a favor when Holden threatens Murtry and her showing up foul-mouthed and all in the epilogue. Like number 5, more Avasarala again. The epilogue saved this from being a letdown. Maybe not a letdown, but saved it from being underwhelming, maybe. The political implications of Holden's success on Illis may be a stretch, but the idea is a good one. That folks will abandon Mars, a challenging atmosphere, a terraforming nightmare, makes a lot of sense. Probably even if Holden hadn't succeeded like maybe they wanted to have happen. Concerns about their nuclear payload is a believable threat, and also a tasty bit of intrigue. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Levers. This is Fit to be Read. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. Please click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you.